Advisor on the Israel-Palestine negotiating team at the US State Department, now a senior fellow at the Philip Merrill Center for Strategic Studies at Johns Hopkins University. Laura, welcome to you. Always good to see you. These Israeli strikes on Lebanon appear to be the worst violence since the ceasefire came into effect in November. How significant do you assess them as being?
Well, I think they just underscore the fact that these ceasefires are short-term. They're not any kind of a long-term peace. It's true that Israel is no longer willing to accept this policy of containment. There's kind of a zero tolerance for any attack from invaders. Israel's trying to kind of bubble wrap themselves with buffer zones, including into Lebanon in the north. 6 projectiles were fired at Israel. 3 fell in Lebanese territory. 3 were intercepted. And Israel's defense minister said, as far as we're concerned, the little town of Metula equals Beirut. And as the opposition member in Israel, Yair Lapid, who's considered, to the left, he said, yes, we're going to fight an eye for an eye, but it's going to be 2 eyes for an eye. So there's kind of this sense, Netanyahu, he's looking over at Trump in Washington. He is tailor-made for the job as Trump's trigger man, but he's got to prove himself every day in the Middle East, as Trump called it, a tough neighborhood.
So do you think then that this could go further? Do you think this could put pressure essentially on that pretty fragile truce that was brokered by the US and France?
Well, I think that, unless we address the root causes, it's going to continue to be fragile. I mean, here we are in the springtime again. It's still war. It feels like this kind of spring cleaning. I don't think it's going to go all the way to the pitched battle of a year ago. Lebanon was the kind of point of pride. It was the location where Netanyahu felt like he reasserted his deterrence. The gift that he gave to President Trump was a golden beeper, like sort of a mocking of the pager attack that he launched last year when Israel kind of seized the initiative. Last week, he gave a silver beeper to a Senate delegation. So I think for him, it's just kind of showing that we can have peace through strength. There's tremendous turmoil at home. Opposition, the Israeli public is asking to return the hostages, pull back on the wars. We want to have democracy at home. So there's kind of a clash within Israeli society, and part of it a little bit is a distraction by kind of launching these attacks. It was the Jewish Sabbath, and in the past 24 hours, there are 200 strikes altogether by the IDF in Syria, Lebanon, and Gaza.
I want to talk a little bit more about the situation, as you say, in the neighborhood as well, including in Gaza. Israeli leaders, including the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, have said that they've launched this renewed attack in Gaza, in part to put pressure on Hamas to free the remaining hostages. Do you think it's a show of strength, of course, from Netanyahu, but it will have the intended effect?
Well, I mean, I just turn to the hostages themselves, and they say no, that they do not believe that that's the way you're going to bring that they call them their brothers because they sat in these dark tunnels together with them. They were family for a year. So I defer to them. They said that it endangers the hostages' lives. But I also think that this is part of a preamble to what's coming up in the future, which is negotiations with Iran, whether it's through diplomacy or bombs. Israel is sending 2 of their most senior advisors, Ron Dermer, who's kind of Netanyahu's political left-hand man, and National Security Advisor Tzachi Hanegbi to Washington this week. Topic number 1 is going to be Iran's nuclear program. So you have the United States tonight bombing the Houthis in Yemen. Again, Israel, it's a kind of 360-degree attack. And I think all of this is to send a strong message to Iran saying you have a choice, bankruptcy or the bomb or worse, or all hell, as Trump likes to threaten.
You were just mentioning there the stance from the hostage families. We had some comments yesterday from the Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, and he said that he thinks public opinion in Israel is going perhaps against going back in on Hamas from the IDF. And he actually said that maybe if they, quote, demilitarize, they could stay there a bit politically, is what he said in that interview with Tucker Carlson. What do you make of what he had to say?
Well, I immediately think of Netanyahu biting his tongue, right? Because that won't make him, I'm sure that he's infuriated, but he isn't going to cross Trump publicly. Netanyahu is, heavily dependent on Washington for weapons, for diplomatic cover at the UN and beyond. You have other countries, France, Spain, calling on Israel to show restraint in Lebanon and beyond. Trump isn't calling on Israel for restraint. And that's one thing that Netanyahu appreciates. He's got the green light from Trump, unlike that yellow flashing red from Biden. So no matter what Trump says, he's going to have to go pretty far for Netanyahu to cross him publicly.
All right. Laura Blumenfeld, a former senior advisor on the Israel-Palestine negotiating team at the U.S. State Department, now a senior fellow at the Philip Merrill Center for Strategic Studies at Johns Hopkins University. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.